And welcome back again, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. Welcome. You are watching. Keep it honest. Excuse me. Keep it honest. Where we keep it honest, keep it simple, and we keep it real. I am Anthony Parker Alexander, and I'd like to thank you and welcome you to the program. If you've never seen the show before, well, what we try to do is we try to keep it simple, we try to keep it honest, we try to keep it real. Shocking news this year is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about the election. We're not going to talk about Supreme Court affirmative action. We're not going to talk about transgender, any of those important issues that people talk about. We are not going to talk about it. But shocking news this year. We're going to go through things that have happened this year. And whatever we don't talk about, we're going to talk about it through here. You're going to be surprised of how many things that have happened this year that you might have forgot. Because we've had so many interesting things happen this year. So whatever I don't want to talk about, we're going to talk about it through here. I'm going to give a little opinion, commentary, but we're going to keep it simple, keep it honest, and keep it real. That's what we do. So again, name is Anthony Parker Alexander, and I do this show where we try to give information. We try to get both sides of the story. My background's in journalism, over 20 years in journalism. I was a social creator before that term even existed. And now everybody is a social creator. But how much of social media do you believe and not believe? I've worked in social media over the years, or regular media over the years, mainstream as people call it. And I found out that some of the stuff is not being brought out there to the public. And so I took my talents from mainstream and now going social. And what I try to do is get both sides of the story. I give you the information, I give you the truth, hopefully, prayerfully, and then you decide. It's kind of like Cliff Notes. I tell people, some of the haters people or professions is journalists, politicians, and pastors. And I tell people, whatever we give you, whether we're one of those three, take it, use it as Cliff Notes, then go home and investigate it yourself. And that's why I'm here. I was fair and balanced before there was fair and balanced. So on our show, we try to do stories. We did a story where we talked about the 27 missing kids in Cleveland, Ohio. And I found out about that story from another social media person. And I saw it and I said, well, why isn't anybody really doing this story? So we're going to follow up on that story, the 27 missing kids. And we also did a show dealing with fathers. Fathers really don't get the acclaim that they should. So we did a show about favorite TV dads. And if you look at that dad, is that you? Or is that somebody you want it to be? Or is that your dad? And we got a lot of good response on that. We do long shows. We do short shows. So, type, keeping it honest. And you'll be able to pick up some of our clips of our shows or some of our even whole shows. And if you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com, or you can text us. Telephone number is 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. So we're going to go from the beginning of the year to pretty much where we're at now and talk about some of the interesting things that have happened in our country. But before I do that, each show we're going to have a quote, an inspiration. So I'm going through this list And I'm going to tell you something, hopefully it'll make you feel good. This is from Chantel Sutherland. Believe in yourself. Take on your challenge. Dig deep within yourself to conduct fears or to conquer fears. Sorry about that. I'm going to say it again. Believe in yourself. Take on your challenges. Dig deep within yourself to conquer fears. Never let anyone bring you down. You got this. That's from Chantel Sutherland. And also, what I'm doing now on some shows, the hardest question that you have ever been asked. I'm going to give you a series of those. And I want to see if you can answer them. You have to dig inside yourself. I was watching the show Picard, and on there, somebody asked him the question, the logic of sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice? And if you do, is it illogical, which sounds like Spock? Something to think about, the logic of sacrifice. We may talk about that a little bit later. And also I did a late night show, which I really enjoyed, and we'll talk about that too. But right now, we are talking about the shocking news this year. I love that. I love when these come up, right? The shocking news this year. So now let's talk about it. January 1st, books, films, and other works were published in 1927. They entered the public domain. So it takes almost 100 years, it seems, for things that people created to go into public domain. And I'm going to make you work sometimes for the show, because like I said, it's like Cliff Notes. So look up what public domain means. And then you'll understand why it's taken so long for some of these works that were published in 1927 to go into public domain. January 2nd this year, Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin, he collapsed from cardiac arrest after a tackle, causing the Bills to cancel the game, and it resulted in a no contest. So where were you at when that football player fell and had a cardiac arrest? I didn't get a chance to see it live, but you think of the ramifications of this. All these football players, all these sports stars, they looked at this as, wow, is this really worth my life doing this? And he opened up a lot of people's feelings and emotions about really, taking care of yourself. And at the end of the day, the sacrifices that you may do. Yes, a sport, but if something happened to you and somebody said, you know what, you're getting concussions, if you get it again, it might be dire for you, would you be willing to give up what you love? And with the thing that happened with him, we saw a lot of love, people in the sports field and all across the world. They were praying for this guy because they saw it live. They were simply watching a football game, and this guy literally died. And the interesting thing is that he's supposedly going to be playing again. So, we pray for him and everything. So, January 3rd, Congress convenes following the 2020 midterm elections. So for the next 4 days, they are trying to find out who is going to be the Speaker of the House. And this was not yet determined. And it took so long, it hadn't happened in nearly 100 years. So they were desperate. And this Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, which we'll talk about in a second, he was pleading to get elected. The things you do, the sacrifices that you do, the logic of sacrifice. So on that same day, January 3rd, Keenan Anderson, he dies after being repeatedly tased by the Los Angeles police. And we know some of these police and civilian altercations have been going on for years, but because of mainstream media, is it something new that we're learning? Is it more of an increase? You would think after all these years that there would be something where either you wouldn't put yourself in a situation to get accosted by a cop, or you just kind of do what the police says. It's a catch-22 kind of thing. And it's kind of bad when you have to tell your kids about the birds and the bees, about life, and about being a black man and black person driving while black and being stopped by the police. As best as you can, just do what they say, and prayerfully they won't use that power and authority to harass you. There are good cops out here, and there are good people out here. We just have to realize that. And in between, as I'm reading this, shocking news this year, we'll give our commentaries too. So, the final of several related shootings, which allegedly target Democrats, occurs in the home, or at the home of a Democratic politician in New Mexico. There are no deaths or injuries. And it's interesting because politics is so crazy and people so crazy about politics that you even have to be careful what you say as a politician, because you may have somebody out there who may try to hurt you. So being a politician, people may laugh. It can sometimes be a dangerous field. On January 4th, a mass shooting occurs inside a house in Utah. 8 members of a single family consisting of 3 adults and 5 children are killed, with their bodies being found by police doing a welfare check. And you wonder, was there something dealing with mental health illness in this situation? Because all of them were dead. And we're going to see a recurring theme as far as mass shootings. I'm going to let you know. So far this year, mass shootings, there's been over 350 mass shootings. Total number dead, over 430 people dead. Total number wounded, almost 1,400 wounded. There have been more mass shootings than there have been days of the year so far, and it keeps getting worse. And is it because of, mental health illness? Is it because of COVID? Because at that time everything was shut down, people were just coming back still? Is it because of just life? Mental health illness, is it just a part of life? Is it something that we look at and say, well, we take it too serious, or we don't take it serious enough? You're watching. Keeping it real. Keeping it honest. With yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. January 5th. I think we know what's coming up soon. The South Carolina Supreme Court strikes down the state's 6-week abortion ban, ruling it violates the state's constitution. And the abortion, whether you believe it or not, is it a person's choice? Is it a country's choice? Is it a state's choice? We're going to talk about that in depth on an upcoming show. The Idaho Supreme Court upholds the state's ban on abortion in a 3-2 ruling. It's your body. Can anybody control your body? Can they tell you not to smoke? Can they tell you not to drink? Can they tell you not to have a baby? In some people's eyes, yes, they can. In some people's eyes, they can't. January 6th, a 16-judge panel on the United States Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit blocks a federal ban on bump stocks. On that same day, a 6-year-old student shoots and injures his teacher at school in Virginia. A 6-year-old with a gun shoots his teacher. First question is, where did the kid get the gun? How is the kid getting the gun? Should the parents be arrested? How good are the parents? Is it social media that is getting that kid to, do what he did? Is he a kid in the old days that they would believe in capital punishment, picking him up and just tapping him? The times are changing. And when they say you forget things in the past, you tend to repeat it. Well, I never heard about a 6-year-old kid growing up, when I was a kid, going after a teacher, especially for a gun. Man, January 7th, 13-year-old Karen Blake is fatally shot in Washington, D.C. just before 4 a.m. And this is in New England. My question is, what is a 13-year-old doing outside at 4 in the morning? You need to know more about that story? Follow it up. January 7th, after 4 days and 15 ballots, Representative Kevin McCarthy is elected as a 55th Speaker of the House of Representatives. And you know what? He's an interesting guy, whether you like him or not. But it took days and 100 years for him to get what he wanted. Not for him to do it for 100 years, but as a president. He's a cocky guy. And after he got in, he was trying to say before, look, if you vote me in, I will even give you concessions on easy ways to vote me out. That's how bad I want it. Again, the logic of sacrifice. This guy wanted this so bad, he was willing to sacrifice a lot to get in. Now he's in, and you hear a story. And he's a guy who's not just Speaker of the House, but he thinks he's Speaker of the world. So, prayerfully, we'll remember, don't get too big for your britches, because Congress can go back and do what you said they could do and put you out. So unless you're going to be there for the good of the country, then make sure you do the right thing. January 7th, also, 5 black police officers at the Memphis Police Department, they severely beat Tyree Nichols. Now, this is a 29-year-old black man doing a traffic stop. He dies due to his injuries on January 10th, and his death causes outrage and protests across the country. Are we still doing this? The term Black Lives Matter. People matter. But are we still doing this? What is it going to take for maybe police and civilians to get together? Maybe there should be more, I don't know about review boards, but people in the community working with the police and the police working with the community. But to the civilians, just don't put yourself in a spot where you get caught for doing something that could be perceived wrong. But as some of these cases have been overruled because cops have been violent towards civilians, sometimes it's not just the cops' fault. But then also sometimes it's not the civilians' fault. And we'll be talking about this ongoing, I don't know what you would call it, between police and civilians and police. We've been doing it for so long, we have to come to an answer sometime. So also on January 6th, San Francisco Central Subway, it enters the full review service. What does that mean? Well, for people in San Francisco, it probably means a lot. So January 8th, immigration policy of the Joe Biden administration, Biden visits the Mexico-United States border for the first time. What took him so long? During his presidency. They say people are crossing the border and you know, whether you like or not, one thing Trump did say he was going to try to work with the border. And then the Biden administration, it seems like it's not working. So what do? Do you build a border better? Build a border better. That's my political term, BBB. How do we stop people from crossing the border? That is a campaign promise that really somebody has to keep. But it took Biden about 2 years to go to the border. January 8th again, the investigation into the failed attempt to overturn the election by former President Trump. This is interesting. They complete their work on that, and the special grand jury submits its report on the matter. And we're still going to be talking about this in history. I don't think we'll ever get a correct or true version of what happened. In people's eyes, the right election turned out how it was. In other people's eyes, it didn't turn out right. So my thing is, that got all screwed up. So for this next one coming up, let's try to make it work and vote and get all the votes right this time. January 10th, Alan Weisenberger is sentenced to 5 months in jail for a decades-long tax fraud scheme involving the Trump organization. So my question is, Trump organization, Donald Trump, you don't know what your organization is doing. You don't know anything about the tax fraud. This guy is spending 10 years in prison, and he's worked for your organization. You know, people who have money and they kind of don't get caught up. They say, you know what, I've got the money. I just gave it to them to take care of. I didn't know that we were doing this stuff. Well, you didn't know, and that's your company. Well, maybe you should know more about your company. January 11th. For the first time since 9/11, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, they issue a nationwide ground stop following the failure of the FAA's NOTAM system. So 9/11 was in 2011. This is 2023. It took you guys 12 years to put a ground stop to this? You wonder, what made you guys do that? January 12th, Joe Biden's classified documents incident. Attorney General Garfield appoints Robert Hur to investigate mishandling of classified documents by President Biden. And was this why he was president? Was it why he was senator? Or was it why he was vice president? We're going to talk about these documents as we go on. January 16th, a baby, a teenager, and 4 others are killed in a mass shooting at a home in California by the alleged cartel members. Wow, now that's a great follow-up. Anybody interested in that story? Follow it up. I'll follow up too and let me know what happened with that. January 18th, the United States Virgin Islands legalizes marijuana, becoming the 3rd U.S. territory and 25th U.S. jurisdiction overall to do so. And for the people that approved it, yay. Guess I'll let you know, that's not my commentary. That's for the people who want to legalize marijuana. And of course, as I say, we'll talk about that later. We will talk about that later. January 21st, a mass shooting occurs at a dance studio. I remember this story. 11 people are killed and 9 more are injured. The perpetrator commits suicide the following day. So when you commit suicide and you do things like this, are you trying to make a statement after you commit suicide? Who really cares? You committed suicide. It's being a coward by committing suicide and not taking responsibility for the things that you did. But the thing that's bad, when you commit suicide, the authorities never get inside your mind to find out why you did that. Wow. January 23rd, criminal proceedings in the January 6th United States Capitol attack. 4 Oath Keepers, in addition to the person who laid his feet on Speaker Pelosi's desk, they're convicted. And the reason I kind of chuckled, and I was remember when that story, I'm thinking, dude, are you crazy? You're in her office and you got your feet on her table, and you don't think you're going to get caught? Why did people do this is my question, because eventually, I mean, some are getting caught. Some have been labeled crazy, but you're storming the Capitol and you don't think that's a crazy thing. You think you had your right to do that? Were you really going after people to kill? And to sit your feet up on Pelosi's desk and think that you could get away with that. Man, that's crazy. January 24th, classified documents are revealed to be found at the home of former Vice President Mike Pence. Again, he's sitting there eating with his wife, knock on the door. Pence is like, who is it? They say, we're the FBI, we're here to pick up boxes. He's like, boxes? Yeah, former Vice President, you took some boxes home, we have to get them back. Oh, shoot. I didn't know that. Not just you, but other people too. We will talk about it. January 7. Protests begin after the Memphis Police Department releases a footage of officers beating Tyre Nichols to death. Following the release of the footage, the department disbands the Scorpio unit, while the Memphis Fire Service dismisses 3 personnel for failing to render aid. So they just stood there and let that happen. Haven't we heard that story before? January 28th, as I shake my head. And for this story too, a shooting takes place in the Beverly Crest neighborhood in Los Angeles, killing 3. The suspects are arrested 4 months later. Are you numb to a lot of these stories? Like I said before, there have been this year over 340 mass shootings, more than once a day. Now we're in the month of February, and you're watching shocking news this year that we're telling you. Some of this you know, some of this you don't know. February 1st, here we go. Joe Biden. The FBI conducts a planned search of President Biden's home in Delaware. I think it is take your former politician not to work, but to get the classified documents day. So it is interesting. Now, these major politicians, vice presidents, presidents, former presidents, have had their houses investigated because they took documents. You know, I say, when you get in those positions, do they have anything in the rule book where it says, honor the law, do not be crooked, and do not take classified documents home? Are these boxes you check and maybe they didn't see them? I don't know. Wow. So you're watching shocking news this year. February 2nd, it's always political. In a party line vote, the House of Representatives, they kick out Representative Omar from the House Committee on Foreign Affairs due to the remarks that she had said previously about Israel policy that many deemed as anti-Semitic. I remember this lady, and she's a representative, I think, that has a turban, and she made some remarks and they wanted to kick her out, but they decided to put her back in, which is good. Read up on that story and let me know if it's good for you. In United States versus Rahim, now this is interesting. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a federal law which criminalizes the possession of a firearm by an individual who is subject to a restraining order for domestic violence is unconstitutional. So if you're a person that has a restraining order for domestic violence, is that cool? That you can carry a firearm? Domestic violence, I would like to know what are the odds when somebody commits it once, excuse me, do they do it again? Hence, maybe not being proved to have a firearm. I don't know, it's up in the air, you let me know. Speaking of up in the air, the Chinese balloon incident, or a couple of them, this is when it starts. Defense officials announced that a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon is being tracked over the western United States. And I can see tracking it, I guess, to try to figure it out. We'll go more into that. February 3rd, recreational cannabis sales begin in Missouri. Again, for those people, yay. A Norfolk Southern train derails, and this really hits close to home, while carrying dangerous chemicals outside of East Palestine, Ohio, creating a large environmental disaster situation. So some of these people, months later, they're still being affected. That little town's being affected. Prayerfully, that big company will take care of that community. But you think, this has happened. What are the lingering effects? Are there going to be any diseases later on because of this chemical effect? And as a politician, I can tell you, no, not me being one, but being in the area of knowing politicians, you can make a law. You can put together saying something, if any train is coming through my area, then it must let us know ahead of time, a day, a week, whatever, that we have chemical ingredients on our train. Because you hear about these accidents happening. Anything can happen. As a politician, you can help make that change. And don't just wait till election season. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and a politician too, coming up on the show. So, on February 4th, the suspected Chinese spy balloon, remember that balloon? Balloons are cute. It's shot down by a missile, not a cute balloon, off the coast of South Carolina. So what made the United States, as they're looking at that balloon saying pretty, that they said, you know what, we're going to shoot down that balloon. what made him do that. So February 4th, there was a cold wave. Set a record, 108 degrees. Wow. That was in Mount Washington and also New Hampshire. And that's my weather report. February 5th, the 65th Academy Awards. I love the Academy Awards. I don't know if you guys watch them too. Sorry about that. It was the Grammy Awards. Academy Awards are coming up, but the 65th Academy Grammy Awards. And Lizzo won. About darn time. I'm editing myself. And Harry Styles wins Album of the Year. And Beyonce won her 32nd award to become the most winning artist of all time. She beat me by 32. So would you figure Beyonce's only been out about 20 years? She's the most winning artist of all time. Wow. Congratulations. February 7th, President Biden gives his second State of Union address. One of my favorites on that same day, LeBron James breaks the all-time NBA scoring record, 38,388 points. The record was previously held by Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Congrats, LeBron. You've been playing, about 20 years? Well, heck, I guess you deserve that. But congratulations. February 9th, former Vice President Pence is subpoenaed by a special counsel leading an investigation into former President Trump. One thing I don't like about President Pence, well, he's a God-fearing man, which is good. But the Capitol incident, when they were looking for you, Pence, and Trump was nowhere to be found, and Trump didn't really support you and has called you kind of like a coward. And when they've asked you, and even in your book, they're like, Pence is going to tear Trump up in a book. No. Pence is going to tear Trump up in interviews. No. Pence is going to tear Trump up because he's running for president. No. He's got a heart of soul. But if somebody really doesn't care about you, and you're not letting him have it, even people who are Christians, and think, you know what, we will vote for you, just get mad. And we will vote for you. Because if you're not going to get a little bit upset, and somebody didn't care, and you worked with them for 4 years, that people are trying to kill you, then what if somebody tries to kill America? Are you going to stand for us like you stood for yourself? The logic of sacrifice. Wow. February 10th, Mike Pence's classified documents incident. They come into his home and they find some more classified documents. Who is it? FBI. Yes, what do you need? Hey, Vice President Pence, we happen to find some more documents. Can we come in the house and get them? Oh, shoot. No problem. All right. February 11th. Was this a balloon? The United States military, under orders of President Biden, shoots down a high altitude object over Canada. Boy, these balloons and objects are just appearing over our land space. February 13th. Georgia Judge McBurney, he approves the release of parts of a grand jury inquiry investigating Trump and his efforts to overturn the election. This is going to be an ongoing thing this year, probably until the next election. Are we ever going to find out what the truth was? Each of us believe in our heart what the truth was, but the truth may not be your truth. Speaking of truth, and the truth is, this is a consistently sad, ongoing story. A mass shooting is carried out at Michigan State University. 3 students were killed in the attack and 5 others injured. The shooter committed suicide as he was being approached by police. Again, that's a cowardly act to commit suicide. Take them down before they commit suicide and make them pay for the rest of their life for what they do. So killing yourself, you're trying to be a martyr. At the end of the day, who cares? The people, the family members, they care about their family, but they don't care about you. February 14th, United States Nikki Haley, presidential candidate. That's the day she announced it. I liked her at one point, but she's one where she's, She goes this way, she goes that way. First she backed Trump, do everything that happened, then she didn't, then she backed him. And I don't know what she's doing now. I originally wanted her to run for president 4 years ago, but then I kept seeing her flip-flop, flip-flop. And I said, okay, well, who wants a flip-flopper in the White House? Don't show your flip-floppiness, all right? Quote that, flip-floppiness, before you get in office. Show it afterwards. So she's running for president. And we'll see how that goes. Maybe VP might be good. I don't know. So February 17th, a shooting spree takes place in Mississippi, killing 6 people and injuring 1 person. The suspect is later arrested. See, that's good. I don't know if that one tried to kill themselves or not, but they were arrested. February 18th, the Carter Center announces that former President Jimmy Carter has entered hospice care. I love that guy. He was a guy, almost talked like Bill Clinton, but he was a president, one-term president, peanut farmer that became president. But his legacy is that he took care of people afterward. And what greater legacy is that? The logical sacrifice. He wasn't that good probably of a president for 4 years, but decades. He was a humanitarian. So we pray for Jimmy Carter and that he continues to be the great man that he is. So this one is interesting. I chuckle. Marjorie Taylor Greene, we know about her. So she advocated for a national divorce between the red states and the blue states. She further suggests that red states disenfranchise people that move from the blue state. And the penalty is 5 years. So a lot of people were upset. Democrats were upset about that. Mitt Romney was upset. Liz Cheney was upset. And then I'm just kind of upset how some politicians, how did they get in office? Whether people voted for them, you get what you vote for. Wow. Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. This guy's interesting. So he's a billionaire and he's running for president. One good thing I like about him too is that he has a streaming show where he interviews people. And some of the stuff, it makes sense. Some of it doesn't. Does he have a chance to become president? I don't think so. But very intelligent man. And he's a billionaire. So, he doesn't have to worry about advertising or nothing like that. And when you're that rich, I'm like, okay, well, if you can't get in politics, don't try to make politics, but then do some things where you can help. Billionaire, you can help the United States. But I give you credit for trying, and hopefully you're not doing this because of your ego, because you have money. Because I always say, rich people, they have a lot of dollars, but they don't have a lot of sense. Makes no sense to me. So, February 23rd, Florida executes death row inmate Donald Dillback, ending a 3-year hiatus on executions. So what makes you say you take a 3-year break? And during that 3 years, there's so much crime committed that, the politicians say, dude, what are we going to do? There are too many people committing crimes, and it doesn't seem they're paying for it. The other politician says, well, you know what? We used to have the death penalty executions. You think we should bring that back? Well, let's see how that works. People still killing people, doing heinous things and everything, so they say, you know what? We've got to bring that back. We have got to bring executions back. So it's that bad in that city that you have to bring back executions. And if you had a choice, because there's still firing squad, execution, I don't know if there's hanging, and there's, the injections. Which ones would you take? Well, don't do bad, don't get in trouble, don't go to jail, and then you won't have to make that choice. So on this day, which was interesting, because I'm making sure I'm having the right day here, this is in February, and I don't know if you're a fan of the cartoon Dilbert, but the guy, this is on February 23rd of this year, The guy that writes Dilbert, and he's an interesting guy. The strip was dropped by every newspaper because Scott Adams, he posted a video in which he characterized black people as a hate group. Wow, that's crazy, as a hate group. This guy, very smart guy. He's on streaming now, does a show every day. I would say check him out, get his views. He's intelligent, some things that he says, other things he's not. Characterizing black people as a hate group. So if I'm sitting here and I'm not in a group, I must be a hate person. We're in March now, and you are watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker. So March 2nd, trial of Alex Murdaugh. So this guy is convicted by a jury and sentenced to life in prison without parole the next day for the murders of both his wife and son, as well as 2 gun charges. So life imprisonment, justly deserved. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signs a controversial bill that bans drag performances in the state. Okay, if you have your preference to do things, when does the law intercede and the law doesn't? So he signs a bill that bans drag performances in the state. So for people who are into drag, I guess you can't do that in Tennessee. I don't know what other states you can do it at. I guess to each his own. So it's a controversial bill. If you're interested in knowing more about that, then look it up. But where's the stop between politicians and your own personal right? March 3rd, Walgreens announces that it will not sell abortion pills in states where Republican officials threaten to take legal action. So when officials threaten to take the legal action, that is where Walgreens is not going to sell the abortion pill. Do we have our rights in anything today? March 4th, Marianne Williamson announces her presidential bid for president. Interesting lady. Some people said she's kind of out there. You have to see what she believes in, and we give her credit for running, though, because it's up to you whether you can vote for her. You have that right. So March 12th, 65th Academy Awards. So there's this movie that won 7 awards, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And I'm curious because it was an interesting movie. I haven't watched it. I saw clips. Let me know if you've watched it. Signature Bank collapsed and becomes the 3rd bank in 5 days to fail. Is that why people are keeping their money under their bed or couch? I remember growing up, you always heard about that because they didn't trust the banks. Do we really trust the banks? I don't know. I know people are having trouble, but then I've had banks that have been good to me. So, March 14th, a northeastern weather thing collapses and knocks out power for 250,000 people. That's my second weather report, and that's why I don't do weather. March 20th, this is interesting, the Idaho state legislature passes a bill that brings in executions by firing squad. If it's signed by the governor, Idaho will become the 5th state to use this method. So there's 5 states that do that. And it is even worse than the other state. You know what? We're bringing executions, but we're bringing it by firing squad. Because they're probably thinking, hey, you know what? What's the best way to bring execution? What's the best way to scare people not to do things? Well, you know what? If they do bad enough things, let's just blindfold them, hopefully blindfold them, put their hands behind their back. I don't know if you give them a smoke like they did years ago from watching movies. And then you get a firing squad, how many people, and then you shoot them. And the politician said, hey, you know what? If we do that, then maybe people won't commit crimes. I don't know how scary that's been, but that would be scary to me. So, March 27th, 6 victims as well as the perpetrator are killed in a mass shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. That's it, it keeps going and going. March 28th, the United States announces that it will stop sharing information about its nuclear arsenal with Russia. Well, you know what? If we're kind of the good guys and they're kind of the bad guys, why are we just saying we're going to stop sharing the information? Done. March 20th or March 30th, Stormy Daniels. Trump has indicated over his hush money for payments on that day, making him the first former president to be charged with a crime. And since then, the hits, they just keep a coming. Teflon Don. He's the first president to be impeached, not once but twice. First president to have, man, you pick it. He's been the first. First president to probably come back in some people's eyes, be convicted, but also become president again. Man, he's the first president. March 31st, my birthday. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear signs a bill legalizing medical cannabis in the state. As we're seeing, some of these states are slowly becoming legal as far as drugs or marijuana. Are you for or against marijuana? One show we're going to do is about marijuana. We'll talk about that. This is interesting. April 1st, we're in April now. Federal Judge Pittman orders that 12 books containing LGBT and racial content, which were banned by Leanna County, Texas school officials, must be returned to the school shelves. Very controversial, whether you're a parent or not. So these books were banned. And my thing is, I would love to do a show and read one of these banned books. First, I'd really look into it to see if it's okay, because everybody has their preference. Everybody now has rights more than they did years ago. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? April 2nd, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson announces his presidential bid. And to that I say, April 4th, indictment of Donald Trump. He pleads not guilty to 34 charges of falsifying business records relating to the scandal involving Stormy Daniels. And that's just for Stormy Daniels, not for the impeachment and everything else. How many charges does this guy have? Wow. And he's still skating it. I'm telling you, you give him credit, you have to. One thing can stop somebody. But he's got so many things going, and he's like Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going and going. Wow. And I'd like to thank people for supporting the show and everything. You're watching. Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker. So, as I'm looking, 5 people on April 10th, you guessed it, are killed and 8 others are injured in a mass shooting at a bank. The perpetrator is also killed. On that same day, documents from the Pentagon detailing foreign military aid related to Ukraine is leaked into the internet. When people say they don't know how things happen, they know kind of how things happen because they're doing it. Jeez. Representative Justin Jones on April 18th, he was reinstated back into the Tennessee House of Congress. Because a couple of days before that, they put him out because of statements that he had said. And because of the outswell of people, they were able to put him back in. So the Arizona Supreme Court rules on that same day that Latter-day Saints Church can refuse to answer questions or turn over documents under a state law that exempts religious officials from having to report child sex abuse if they learn of the crime during the confessional setting. So in essence, if you're a priest and somebody comes to you and says, Father, forgive me for I have sinned, I have done this, and then you tell them that the hideous things that you've done, can the priest let the police know? Well, from here it says that they don't. They don't have to let them know. It's kind of like the HIPAA law. In healthcare, you can't tell people other things. Lawyers, they commit a crime to a lawyer. They can't tell a lawyer. Psychiatrists, the psychiatrist can't tell the police. So these people can tell the police. So you're saying, again, the logic of sacrifice. Because it's logical, you go by the laws, you can't tell the authorities the hideous crimes that have been committed. But the sacrifice is if you don't tell them things have been committed, they will probably continue to commit it. That's something to discuss at a later date. Wow. April 14th, Montana becomes the first state to pass legislation banning TikTok. And that's for politicians in that area. Again, they give us these toys, but then they take away the toys. April 18th, Fox News and Dominion, they reach a 787 settlement, which some people say that was the end of Tucker Carlson. April 20th, Larry Elder. Last year, he ran for governor, almost got it. Now he's running for president. Wow. What chance does he have? And he's also a broadcaster that went into politics. April 21st, Elon Musk, SpaceX, it launches its first test flight of Starship. First test flight, the device explodes shortly after launch. Well, at least he was smart enough to do a test flight with no people. With all these rich people going into space and going underground in the water, they think they can do this without getting stuff federally approved. One thing I do say, billionaires, people that do these things, they may have dollars, but they don't have sense. Think about it. Delaware legalizes recreational marijuana. Again, yay for those people. April 24th, which within minutes of each other, Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon are both fired. President Biden on April 25th formally announces his run for president. April 26th, Disney and Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act. Disney files suit against Ron DeSantis. Now, he's the guy that's running for president over a targeted campaign of government retaliation. And remember, he's running for president. How much of this is true that, he's doing or done? May 1st. Well, before we go to May 1st, let's end at April 28th. A shooting occurs in Cleveland, Texas, killing 5, and the suspect is caught after 4 days. End of April. May 1st, 2023 banking crisis. Wow. We just keep having these. So why would people trust their bank? Ron DeSantis on that day signs a bill authorizing the use of the death penalty for committed child rapists. The legislation is likely to be challenged for violating Supreme Court precedent. So this, speaking of presidents, if he is president, he is for the death penalty for convicted child rapists. So you think about this, then what about convicted adult rapists? Should there be a death penalty law for that? On that same day, a shooting takes place in Oklahoma, killing 6 after the suspect was supposed to stand for a jury trial regarding an accusation of sexing a minor. So the day they were supposed to do that trial, they went out and killed some people. Wow. May 2nd, Writers Guild. They went on strike because of more money. They're still on strike. That's why you may see certain shows in repeat this summer, but coming up in fall, maybe some of those shows won't even be on yet because the writers are looking for money. May 3rd, New York bans gas stoves and propane heating in new residential constructions. The bans take place in 2025 for smaller buildings and 2029 for larger residential buildings. So up to that time, you still can use your gas stove and propane. On that same day, former Minneapolis police officer Tyel is guilty of second-degree manslaughter in the murder of George Floyd. Everybody should be held accountable in whatever they do. On that same day, a shooting takes place at a hospital in Midtown, Alabama, killing 1 and injuring 4. The perpetrators caught, after 8 hours. Wow. May 4th, criminal proceedings. 4 members of the Proud Boys who were at the January 6th attack, including founder Enrique Tarms, are found guilty of several felony charges, including conspiracy. So don't think you can't get caught for what you did, because storming and breaking inside a Capitol is not the best thing to do. A New York-based on that same day, and I thought this was interesting, it rules that Ed Sheeran did not steal parts of Marvin Gaye's song Let's Get It On and use it in his hit song Thinking Out Loud. I love Ed Sheeran. I love Marvin Gaye. I listened to that and I thought that he did use some of that music from Let's Get It On. So type in Ed Sheeran Thinking Out Loud and then listen to Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On and let me know if there is some semblance of that music. I think it was. May 6th, 9 people are killed, including the perpetrator. May 7th, 8 people are killed after a vehicle drives into pedestrians outside a migrant center in Texas. 2 days in a row. May 9th, a Manhattan-based federal civil jury finds that former President Trump's sexually abused and he defamed this writer, Jean Carroll, in 1996. He awarded her $5 million for damages. So is that saying he did it? Would you pay off somebody to leave you alone, or would you pay off somebody because it's the truth? Wow. So as we're almost ending, Senator Tim Scott on May 19th says he's running for president. And to that I say, yay. All right. May 24th, DeSantis launches his campaign to run for president of the United States. And the rest is history. May 27th, United States debt ceiling crisis. Wow. They reach a deal to raise the debt ceiling and prevent the United States from defaulting. How many times have that happened? May 30th, Elizabeth Holmes, she's a former CEO and founder of blood testing company Theranos. She begins an 11-year prison sentence. Wow. So interesting about this lady, she had this contraption. And let's say this is this. And she's telling people, I have this contraption where you put a sample of your blood in this contraption and we can determine how to help cure anything that you have in your body. Wasn't really tested, okay? She became a millionaire. She had people giving her money. She had billionaires giving her money to help build these big companies to test this stuff. And then found out that she was lying. And she's going to jail. But it wasn't really tested. We're going to do a fascinating show about her because it's a fascinating story. So now she's doing the crime or doing the time. So if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. All right. In June 2nd, the Department of Justice, they notified Pence that they had ended their investigation of his documents. Okay, Pence, well, we didn't find anything. So, everything's cool. Did you guys apologize? That's what I want to know. All right. June 5th, Oklahoma approves the first ever religious charter school in the United States. And that's interesting. It approves the first ever religious charter school in the United States. I don't know what that means, so look that up and find out. I will talk about it. All right. And as we're about to close up, a shooting takes place on June 6th at a movie theater after a graduation, killing 2 people. June 7th, Mike Pence says he wants to run for president, and he announces that. North Dakota Governor Doug Pergin, he announced his presidency for president. And in response to that was, all right, June 8th, the Supreme Court rules 5-4 that Alabama must redraw its congressional map as it violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 65. So with these elections and the redistricting, some people are saying is hurting small and African American and minority counties to make it more of an advantage to rural communities. I don't know. Time will tell what's happening, but we know the laws are changing. And if you don't want the laws to change, good and bad, then go out and vote. June 13th, a mass shooting in Denver injures 10 people celebrating the Nuggets championship. Wow. And again, mass shootings as of this year, over 340. Total number dead, over 430. Total number injured, over 1,500. Wow. Is that enough for this year? Shocking news this year that we gave you on Keeping It Real. Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker. You have any comments or questions? You can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. You can text me 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button. You can contact me anytime and, well, every time, because we're always putting together for this show that we do. We do long forms, we do short forms. We've got a show coming up where we're going to talk about these papers right here. This was the original letter that was given to a politician and informed to Biden as far as, hey, maybe you shouldn't do the student loan this way because it's going to get rejected. Maybe do it another way. And they told him about that almost 2 years ago. So you think about the people that believed in Biden as far as the student loan and the wavering, and they said, okay, I'm not going to pay my student loan now. I'm going to buy something that I really need. And since it was defeated, how many people now are going to vote for him? How many young people? How many older people? How many people where he said, trust me? Now he's going to the alternative, which was the original thing with this letter that he's supposed to do in the first place. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, and please don't yawn, the Supreme Court and what they do. We know they do these things. It's been very controversial, some of the things that they passed this year. But what do we know about them? Okay? Do we know what they like? Do we know what they don't like? What makes them that person that rules or overrules on all of these things that come up? Why do they do the things that they do? Wow. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about subjects, like I said, that you may have heard, may not have heard about. But we're going to give you both sides of the story. Again, the logic of sacrifice. How much of that is something that you believe in? How much of that are you willing to say, it's not worth it? Other quote in closing. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And media over here, social media, we create it. You review it, and hopefully you learn from that. And remember, use us as cliff notes. Keep supporting us. Real quick, here we go. 23andUs clothing line, family clothing line that I have designed with my family. Get online. We sell, apparel. We sell hoodies, jackets, any kind of clothes. And you get online. When you do get online and you purchase it, all we want you to do is when you open a box, open it up, show us, video it, and say, wow, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I am a part of the 23andUs family. Thank you. Because as I say, it's all about the family. Thank you very much. So you can check us out. We may be doing some more late night shows. Stay tuned for that. But tell your friends, like us, everything. You've been watching Shocking News this year. Stay tuned for more episodes. I am Anthony Parker. Keep your head up. Never look down. Always believe in yourself. Keep it simple. Keep it honest. Keep it real. And therein will lie your answer. God bless.